What is something that you could practice for 1 hour max every day for an entire year, and by the end of the year you'd be an expert in? Being able to judge when exactly 1 hour has passed. I think this applies for small skills only. From my experience, an hour a day will make you an expert in spinning things in your finger. I can spin nearly any relatively flat thing bigger than a tablet as long as I can stand its weight. Laptops, notebooks, suitcases, ceramic plates, cereal boxes, pillows. You get the suitcase. That's what. I'm as curious as you. Training, maybe no expert, but you'd certainly have a good boy. Does this work with bears? Asking for a friend. Does it? Asking for myself. Manipulating your eyebrow. My daughter can do this. It's weird but funny. Adding this to my New Year's resolution. Probably like playing 4 chords on a guitar. You'd probably be an expert at that in 365 hours of practice. But how long before I can play Wonderwall? Today is gonna be the day. Pouring latte art. If you actually practice for an hour every day for a year, you'd be pretty good at it. Solder. If you had new components and new techniques to practice every day, and you actually soldered for an hour every day, you'd be a fucking wizard by the end of a year. You'd also be hugely in debt to just pay for all the tools and parts. But hey, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Edit. This was written in the context of the question. But you can learn the basics in an hour. You can get moderately proficient in a few sessions. You don't have to be a fucking wizard to get lots of useful shit done, as many below have shared. Soldering, electronics, Ask Electronics are all great places to start. Basic soldering requires only a few tools that can be had for cheap. And basically everyone can do it. I've taught many people to solder in a few minutes, and you can learn too. Edit 2, you, Nerd 1A4. I wrote a nice little below. Edit 3, I am seriously gonna edit this to give a huge shout out to the Hako FX 888. Because it's still my go-to for actually getting shit done. Such a wonderful little soldering station. Pricey if you're just getting started, but if you're in it for the long haul, totally worth the money. There is a few hands-on skills I'd love to learn, but the investment in equipment and space is just too high. Okay, so here's what I'll say to solder. You need a good solder station, solder, and solder wick to get going. That'll probably be $50 to $60. A helping hand can be really helpful too. Look for one that has a magnifying glass and at least 2 clips. Space. Just grab a small clean space on a countertop. Cheap components can be purchased from DigiKey or electronics service stores, e.g. if you're in A. Check out All Electronic, but DigiKey really is super cheap. When you're starting, don't get loose components, though. Get a little kit. Solder them together to learn, then move on to loose through-hole components for your own circuits. For learning about circuit design, Forrest Mims 3 is great, along with some Radio Shack books like Basic Electronics and Makes Electronics book. Use Lieutenant Spice to help test your circuit. There's an online one too, I think it's 123 circuit or something like that, that has a smaller learning curve than Lieutenant Spice. In summary, you can learn the basics for $60 in equipment and $30 in components if you play your cards right. After that it's kind of where you take it. Obviously it can get expensive, that's true of all hobbies, but you'll be reasonably capable. Edit. I figured all of one person would read this, so let me add a few other things that are general tips and comments. If you end up really getting into this, definitely check out the Arduino and Raspberry Pi, along with things like PCBWay, which allow you to print custom designed boards for personal projects for like $5 if you order 10. Also boards. For designing boards, Altium is kinda the classic, but it's expensive. Check and see if there's online alternatives. Basic soldering is, I swear, not all that hard. It's also kind of relaxed. General notes about it. Make an effort not to breathe in the solder smoke, and feel free to blow the smoke away a little. Angle your iron on the opposite side of the lead from your solder. and make sure you have a lot of the tip touching the pad the lead is through. A good through-hole solder joint will look like a Hershey's Kiss or teardrop. Clip the extra lead off with some snips. Never touch the hot part. I mean, duh, but like, it's really hot. Definitely not speaking from experience here. Cough, cough. Anyway, solder wick is crazy helpful when you make mistakes. It looks like flat copper strips in a reel, which is basically what it is. Lay a clean section over whatever solder you want to pick up, and press down onto it with the iron. It'll soak up the extra salt. You can snip off the used section with your, well, snips. Wet the sponge in your station before a soldering session, and clean the tip between joints and at the end of your session. Just good clean it by wiping, not pressing down super hard. That's how you burn the sponge. If you're having trouble soldering, getting a clean joint, there's a good chance the iron isn't hot enough, especially if the solder isn't cohering. A lot of solder now is lead-free, which, smart, but leaded solder is much easier to use. IMO. Wash your hands after solder. I've seen people solder and then eat with no hand washing. That's not when done soldering. If there's flux on the board, take a Q-tip, dip it in some rubbing alcohol, and wipe it off a little. If a board isn't working, grab your good friend the multimeter and debug. Learn to read schematics. This will assist you, and the common symbols you can pick up pretty quickly. Most of them even make sense if you think about it a little. Edit 2, thanks for the silver and gold. Not gonna lie, this is starting to get a little surreal. Didn't know so many people were interested in my admittedly limited soldering knowledge. More Inf is a pretty classic little comic that teaches you how to solder. It's very nice. Spark Fun is another good place to get electronics. If you're prototyping a board, try a breadboard, no soldering required. If you're in California, go to a Fry's Electronics Pronto. If you're near a Radio Shack, God bless you, I'm jealous, they're great. Don't really expect the store employees at electronics stores to be helpful. They're just not going to be, not even at all electronics. Sadly, good places to look at online forums. There's a subreddit for electrical engineering, and a Stack Exchange site for electrical engineering. YouTube is great. Check out Ben Eater and Welch Labs. Again, though, Boris Mims 3 and that electronics book by make are fantastic places to start. Backflip. I would die on practice day 1. A spotter is important. The Wii Sport. You would be a god. Bold of you to assume I don't already have 365 plus hours in Wii Golf. You are a fool. I, the master of Wii Sports, have mastered all of the sports in thousands of hours each. I still can't throw a fireball though. Rubik's, from someone who has a friend who does that about an hour a day. He can now solve the 21-sided monstrosity he bought for like $50. Anything over 5x5 uses the same solving pattern. Definitely takes longer to do a 21x21, but you don't need new skills. Edit. Must read 21x21, not 21 sides, but some good comments below. Writing with your non-dominant hand. I don't know about that. I've spent a lifetime training my dominant hand, and I still can't write legibly. Maybe you should spend an hour a day working on your penmanship with your dominant hand for a year. I did that for like a month and my writing has been permanently better. Using chopsticks. Easy. Would an expert after a year. Pickpocketing or lockpick. A new career option. You've just unlocked a new branch in the skill tree. Juggling. Yeah. It took me a weekend to be able to juggle 3 balls above 20 throws. I was juggling balls well the first try. Some things just come naturally to people in truck stop bathrooms. You wouldn't be an expert, but you'd be significantly better at drawing. Came here to say this. I teach drawing and most of my students improved vastly over the course of a year. Just from spending a few hours per week in class. Those who consistently practice outside of class, even just doodling every day, improve even more. I don't think it's something that anyone ever really masters. I've been drawing seriously for about 25 years and I'm still improving. Edited to add. Wow, so my inbox blew up. For the many who have asked, Here are some links to a website full of drawing tutorials, which I often recommend. The same website has a ton of other drawing tutorials that are broken down into step-by-step instructions for beginning artists. I'm like the absolute worst at drawing. Is there any tips you could give for someone like me that wants to learn? That's actually my goal. Month so far and going strong. I've had my quest for 2 months and just got an S on an Expert Plus track for the first time. I love it. Damn, S on Expert Plus. I haven't even beaten Expert Plus yet. Congrats. Being a superhero, all you need to do is 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, 1 km running.